Keep refreshed with Oasis Premium Purified Water. Now available in more thirst-quenching options. 330 ml, 600 ml, 1.5 liter, and 5 liters. Choose the size that fits you best. Grab one today.
Fruta, taste the real Fruta. Enjoy the real Fruta. Refreshing juice of every day. Whoa, Fruta.
High blood pressure is as dangerous as an overpumped balloon. Measuring your blood pressure every day can save you from risk of high blood pressure. MicroLife fully automatic upper arm blood pressure monitor with stroke risk detection. MicroLife AFib screens for atrial fibrillation while taking your blood pressure. High blood pressure and atrial fibrillation are both considered controllable risk factors for stroke. If AFib is present during blood pressure measurement, the AFib icon is displayed flashing at the end of the triple measurement. Once 3 measurements are complete, the measurement data are shown on the display. MicroLife, a partner for people, for life.
Good evening, Assalamu alaikum, and welcome to C Results on IBN TV Channel 8 and on the C Results Facebook page as well as the IBN TV Facebook page. I am your math teacher today, Sir Ijaz, and today is Thursday, so we are doing mathematics for this first hour, and then in the second hour we'll be continuing with the creative writing that we started on Tuesday. On the last class, we basically had a look at patterns, right, which was a subtopic or a topic in the strand of geometry. And we said that we are trying to do, since the very beginning, we're trying to rotate through these different strands of mathematics and cover as many topics as we possibly can before you write that SEA exam in or on the 2nd of April 2020. So again, we are doing here now, we are coming to the end of another rotation. We covered some topics in number, in measurement, and geometry, and now we are back to statistics. And again, once we are done with that, we'll be moving back on to number, and that's the way that we'll be going all the way up until you sit that exam for SEA, all right? So what is it that we have to cover today in statistics? Well, basically, in the section 2 of the paper, which is where we're at in the strand of statistics, because statistics only has 7 questions in the paper altogether, right? 3 in sections 1 and 2, as well as 1 question in the 3rd section. And in section 2, the topics that are usually tested from the statistics strand is that of arithmetic mean, which of course we also do in the 1st section, but the questions are a bit easier. And we also do things like pictographs, bar graphs, frequency charts, and those types of questions. But of course, as we are into the section 2 of the paper, you can expect the difficulty to be that much greater. All right, so hopefully today it's going to be very interactive. We're going to open the lines from the very beginning, basically. And you will have an opportunity, all those viewers out there, to help me work through some questions. Some of them are a bit tricky, and we hope that yourselves at home and later on, those who will be viewing on the Facebook videos section after the live or on YouTube in the future, right, that your interaction will help those who maybe have the same questions and the same, doubts as you may have. When they see us work it through on the program, it might hopefully clarify it for them and for you, all right? So just to reiterate some of the material, because it's been a long time since we've had to do these topics of frequency charts or tables, tally charts, pictographs, bar graphs, all right? And again, if you haven't been with us since the very beginning of the program, you can go onto our YouTube channel. The information will be up. It was up on the screen a while ago, and there it is again. And you can subscribe to us, see results. And on the see results Facebook page as well, you're going to get all of our past videos under the videos tab. But of course, on YouTube, it's very nicely annotated, and you can just look up those videos and look at the preliminary type questions within this topic, okay? So what is a frequency table? We mentioned that a frequency table is one in which data is tallied and organized, all right? It can be used as a first step in making various types of graphs, as we'll come to see very shortly, and as we have looked at in some minor detail, well, actually not minor detail, but the detail required for the section 1 type questions. And also the frequency, as we'll see, it is the numeral or the numeric form of the tally, all right? So this is basically the foundation for most of our other charts, although you won't always get a frequency table or a tally chart to begin your question with, but you can basically use one of those to come up with all these various different types of charts that you will be tested on, right? So, and again, because we're going to be taking your calls, we want to make sure that everyone here is on level footing. You know that, or for those of you who may not know, we have a lot of students who are in Standard 4, although they would have seen this before. It's just good for the general knowledge and a bit of revision before we start to tackle the questions. And also for you parents out there who are assisting your children with studying, if you haven't done this in many, many years, it's going to be a bit of a refresher for you, but it's quite easy actually. We basically tally by drawing the vertical lines, right? Vertical strokes that represent each number. And it's pretty straightforward all the way up to the number 4, where we just have 4 vertical lines. And then on the 5th count, right, or tally, we draw this diagonal across it, and this entire unit here is sometimes referred to as a gate, all right? It resembles a gate, right? And then you just continue basically upwards of that. So if you were to go, for example, to the number 8, we'd have to have one of these gates, which represents 5, and then you're going to have 3 more vertical lines to make up the remainder. So you have there 5 and 3, which is 8, right? We can also look at the teens. I won't do all of these because we did it in our previous videos. This again is just to remind you so that when we tackle our first question, you don't have to be doubting yourself, right? So we have 2 gates here which make up or comprise 10 because each one is worth 5. And then we have 3 more to make that 13, okay? And then, 15 would just be comprised of 3 of these. So it's very simple. And a lot of the times you're actually given that tally format, and then you have to convert the tally to the frequency, right? And the frequency, as we said, is the numeric value that corresponds with those tally chart values or symbols. So we have here a question that we have to answer, and we're going to open the lines up for you right now at home so that you can call and assist us. But again, we do urge you to read the question carefully before you call. These questions are a bit more difficult and they require some thinking, all right? So a survey of supporters' choice of their favorite team in the World Cup is shown in the table below. And again, those numbers will be available for you very soon. Half as many supporters, or persons, support Brazil as they do Germany and Spain together. And you have to complete the table to show the number of supporters for Brazil and Spain. Okay, so we have Germany, Brazil, and Spain, right? These are numbers of supporters of each team. And what we are told here is that Brazil has half the number of supporters as Germany and Spain together. All right, so the together here is really a key element or a key aspect here of our question. So we have to determine how many persons support Brazil in using this information and then complete the missing values. And you'll notice that we have not one or two, we have three actually, missing values here in our table. So we have to input the numeric values for the supporters of Brazil and Spain, as well as the tally for the supporters of Brazil, all right? So, you all can take a moment and work it out. And the lines are open for you to call, right? Like those numbers there, 663-8373 and 645-4426. If you think you know how to answer this problem, feel free to give us a call. And I have a caller on the line at the moment. Good evening, caller. Welcome to See Results on IBN TV. Hi, good day.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, and who am I speaking with?
Janaya Tobias.
Hey, welcome to the program. Is it possible for you to lower the volume on your television, please? All right, so you're there with us, okay?
All right.
Good. So tell me, what do we have to do here? Good afternoon, caller.
Okay. Good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon. Who am I speaking with?
Janaya.
All right. So welcome to the program. So we have three teams here that are supported for the World Cup, right?
Yeah.
Brazil, Germany, and Spain. And we have the tally and the number for Germany.
Yeah.
We only have the tally for Spain, and we want to know, or we want to complete this information.
So Spain is 20.
All right. How do you know that it's 20 for Spain?
Because everyone has counted as 5.
Right.
Everyone is 5. So 5 by 4 is 20.
Very good.
So, as I said, Brazil have as many persons support Brazil as they do Germany and Spain all together.
Right.
So you add 20 and 12 and divide it by 2. You get 16. So Brazil is 60.
All right. Now, that's absolutely correct. And don't forget that you also have to include the tally as well as the number, right? So how do we do a tally of 16 here for Brazil? Caller? All right, so we seem to have lost that caller, but don't worry about it. I will just show you here. So that was the correct answer, okay? We have 12 supporters for Germany, as we can see clearly here. 5 and 5 and 2 gives us 12, right? We have 4 groups of 5 here in our tally, so that gives us 20, right? And we are told that we have half as many supporters for Brazil as Germany and Spain together. So we have to combine those two, as our caller rightly said. 12 and 20 together gives us a total of 32. And when we divide that by 2, we'll get what is the amount of half, right? Or half as much as the both combined, which is 16. And we basically now just have to draw 3 gates. All right. And 1 additional stroke for the tally there for that particular question. Okay, so this topic, we've covered it quite extensively in our previous videos on the frequency charts and tally charts, and they are usually a bit easier than this. This one wasn't all that difficult, but it does require some interpretation of the question. And for more examples of this and seeing it in action, I refer you again to our previous videos, which you can find on Facebook and on YouTube, all right? And there are also lots of questions in your workbooks and past paper booklets and so on for further practice, and you will, of course, be given one or two on Saturday when we post our questions on our Edmodo page. All right, so if you're joining us again for the first time, or maybe a second or third time, and you missed out this particular piece of information, we do have a web page where we post questions every week on the topics that we covered for that particular week. The questions are typically posted on a Saturday, and they are due the Friday after that at 11:59 p.m., right? Questions on English and math are marked instantaneously. You just have to review those results after you submit the quiz, and the creative writing is marked before the Monday afterwards, right? So now that we've refamiliarized or reacquainted ourselves with the frequency chart or the tally chart, let's now move on to another type of representation of data within the realm of statistics, which is the pictograph, right? So the pictograph, and this is a reminder again, is a way of representing data or information that we've collected, right? So just like you may have done some sort of survey here, right? There were, how many people we had there? 32 and 16 is 48 people altogether. So somebody went around and asked these people, you know, which of these three teams is your favorite, or which do you support? And they would have opted for one of these options, right? Perhaps there were other options, but this is what is given here in this table. And they tallied it, and we got the numbers. And now we could have taken this information and represented it, for instance, using the flags for these nations, right? You could use the symbol for Germany as the German flag, the Brazilian flag for Brazil, Spanish flag for Spain, and then come up with a value for each of those flags, right? And then drawing the flags as a pictorial representation of the data. And as you'll realize, that's really a powerful way of representing statistical data. It's not just in giving the numbers straight up, but using graphics, using images to represent it as well, right? Can be very effective in relaying your message or your findings from your statistics. So here we have another question which we welcome your help for. And again, please do read it very carefully, right? So we have an incomplete pictograph here showing the favorite flavor of ice cream enjoyed by 100 children in a club. All right, so we have chocolate, vanilla, coconut, and strawberry. Now, the section 1 questions you typically, or if you look back at it, they'll give you a key and tell you how many or what number each of those symbols represents, right? We have smiley faces here being the symbol. So this question goes on to say that 12 more children like coconut and chocolate ice cream, and we need to draw symbols to represent the number of children who like strawberry ice cream. So how would we do that? I have a caller on the line to assist me. Good afternoon, caller. Welcome to See Results on IBN TV.
Good afternoon.
Hi, and who am I speaking with?
Jacob.
Hey, welcome, Jacob. So, Jacob, what are your thoughts here? Tell me what you're thinking when you're looking at this question.
Since there are 12 more coconut flavors than chocolate,
right,
which is 3 smiley faces,
okay,
therefore 1 smiley face would be equal to 12 divided by 3, which is 4.
All right, excellent. All right, so for our viewers out there who are listening in, Jacob has just told us that there are 6 smiley faces for coconut, and there are 3 for chocolate, and 12 more people children like coconut than chocolate. So we subtract the 3 from the 6, and we're left with 3 smiley faces, and that must be equal to 12. Therefore, 1 smiley face is 12 divided by 3, which is representing 4 children. All right, Jacob. So that is the first piece of the puzzle here.
Yes.
But we have to now draw the appropriate number of smiley faces to represent the children who like strawberry. How would we do that?
So, since there were 100 children in total,
right,
and in the amount shown on the pictograph, is 18. So 18 by 4 would be 72.
All right. So 18
Then-
by 4 is 72, yes.
Therefore, strawberry would be equal to 100 minus 72, which is 28.
All right.
And the amount of smiley faces would be 28 divided by 4, since 4 is equal to 1 smiley face.
Which is equal to how much?
28 divided by 4, which is equal to 7.
Excellent. So therefore, we have to draw
7
7
smiley faces.
smiley faces. All right. Thank you so much, Jacob. You are absolutely correct. All right. So for our viewers out there, I'm not going to move on. Don't worry. We'll spend a moment recapping what just happened here. All right, because some of you might be a bit puzzled, and that is fine. All right. So there's the first key to this question is determining the value of one smiley face. How many children does this smiley face represent? All right. So let's look at this pictograph now. We have 3 smiley faces for chocolate. We have 9 for vanilla, right? You can count them at home. And we have 6 for coconut, right? There are 100 children in this club. Keep that piece of information in the back of your mind, right? And we are told that 12 more children like coconut than chocolate ice cream. So looking at coconut and chocolate, we can clearly see that there are more pictures or symbols for coconut than chocolate. That makes sense, right? Because there are 12 more children who like coconut than chocolate. And again, there are 3 more smiley faces than chocolate for coconut, right? So if we know that 3 smiley faces represents 12 children, we simply have to divide that by 3 to know that one symbol is equal to 4 children. All right, good. So the final thing that we have to do now is to draw symbols to represent the number of children who like strawberry ice cream. So where did this 18 and this 72 come from? All right, so let's look at it step by step. There are 3 smiley faces by chocolate, and if we multiply 3 by 4, which we just calculated, right, we're going to get 12. You multiply the 9 by 4 for vanilla, we're going to get 36. And you multiply the 6 by 4 for coconut, and you're going to get 24. Right? If you add those numbers together, you are going to end up with 72. All right? You're going to get 48 add 24, which gives us 72 all together. So therefore, if there are 100 students in the class, and we only have one flavor here that isn't represented in the pictograph, then it's safe to assume that the number of children who like strawberry is simply 100 minus 72, which gives us 28, right? And knowing that one of those smiley faces is equal to 4 from our previous working, right? We have to divide 28 by 4, and we know that 7 4s are 28. So what you actually will have to do is to draw 7 of those smiley faces in your answer booklet, right? That will be the final step, okay, because you are asked to draw the symbols. So, you know, a lot of students who don't like to draw, they get a little upset when they have to do these questions, especially if the symbols are a little tricky. But that's fine, right? You give it your best go, and in this case, a smiley face isn't too hard to draw. Of course, mine doesn't look as nice as the ones provided in the question, but you draw the smiley face as best as you can, okay? And that is how we answer this question properly, right? This is, again, as we said, is a Section 2 type of statistics question, so notice that it was a bit more engaging and a bit more things to figure out to come to our final answer. And here we have another question on pictographs. So I'm going to read the question out for you, and the lines will be open again for your assistance, right? So this pictograph here shows the favorite type of movies viewed by students in a school, all right? and there were 210 students in this survey. We want to know how many students this like stickman figure here represents, right? So I have a caller on the line. Good afternoon, caller. Welcome to Series
Hello,
on
sir.
TV. Hi, good day.
Hi, this is Jeremiah from last week.
All right, Jeremiah. So firstly, you need to mute the volume on your television, right?
Okay. Is that better?
All right. So we have 210 students in the survey, Jeremiah, and we want to figure out how many students one of these symbols here represent. What would you do to figure this question out?
Well, first thing I would do is add up all these stick figures, then
Right.
take them away, then divide them by 110, by 210.
All right, so I'm still getting a lot of feedback. Is the volume off on the TV?
Is the volume off? If the volume is off. It's a little lower now. Or the microphone is on.
All right, so go ahead. So right, so you're adding up the number of stick figures, and how many figures will you get when you add those up? All right, so let's count. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We have
You'll get,
uh-huh.
you'll get 10 and a half.
10 and a half, right? Because we have 2 half figures and 1 here remaining. So we have 10 and a half in all. And the total number of students in the survey is 210, right?
Yes.
So you said we need to divide 210 by 10 and a half. So go ahead and divide that for me. I'll give you an opportunity to do that. All right. So you got 20. So therefore, how many students does one of our stick figures represent?
20.
20. Thank you so much, Jeremiah. You are absolutely right. Okay. All right. So again, before we move on to the next question, we're just going to break this down once more for our viewers who maybe didn't get it at the first go. All right. So again, these were the favorite types of movies viewed by students in a school. Okay. And they are represented here on the pictograph. And we have here the basic symbol of a stick figure representing a certain number of students, right? We know that the 210 students were surveyed here about their favorite types of movie. And we want to know how many students one of those stick figures represents here on our pictograph. So as Jeremiah correctly said, we have to add the stick figures together, and in so doing, we ended up with 10 and a half, all right? And if you take 210 and you divide it by 10 and a half, right, you are going to end up with a value of 20. That's a nice bit of practice there in dividing using mixed numbers, right, which you'd have to convert to an improper fraction, but that's a lesson for another day, all right? So the answer there is 20. And so therefore, we know that one of our symbols represents 20 students. And of course, you can always verify or double check your answer, which is always advisable to do. Right, so we've come up with the answer here of 20. So that means that we have here now 4 by 20, which is 80, and half of 20, which is 10. So we're going to get 90 people with a favorite type of movie being comedy, right? Then we'll have 40 with their favorite being action. We're going to have 30. 1.5 by 20 will give us 30, whose favorite is horror. And then we are going to have 50 here for drama. And if you add those up there, you'll have 130 plus 80, and that will give us the 210, right? So we know that we found the correct number of students represented by the symbol. So that's correct again. So thank you, Jeremiah, for your assistance. Okay, so far we've looked at the pictograph, we've recapped the frequency chart / the tally chart, and now we're going to be looking at bar graphs, which is another method of representing statistical data graphically. All right, so what is a bar graph? So a bar graph is another method of representing data where we use bars instead of the pictures and symbols. And again, just like in the pictograph, you know, we could derive one from the other, right? We could take the frequency / tally chart and use those values and come up with a symbol and create a pictograph using it. We can also take that frequency chart and use those numbers in the frequency column to come up with bar graphs, right? And we have to be able to interpret these bar graphs. And what are some of the distinguishing features of the bar graphs? Well, one is that the space between all of the bars must be the same, and that the bars have to have the same width. All right, so when you're drawing a bar graph, make sure that they are spaced equally and that the bars have the same width, and they can either be vertical or horizontal. The bars can be up, down, or across on your page, and we really distinguish the differences in values based on the length of the bars. All right, so I have another question here on the board, or a first question dealing with the topic of bar graphs, right? So I'm going to read the question first. So the bar graph shows ranges of marks obtained by all students writing a test. To pass the test, a student had to make more than 40 marks, right? So what do they want us to know? They want us to calculate the difference in the number of students who passed the test and those who failed. All right, so I have a caller on the line. Good afternoon, caller. Welcome to See Results on IBN TV.
Hi,
Hi, good day. And who am I speaking with?
Jacob.
Hey, welcome back, Jacob. So, Jacob, what are your thoughts on this question?
Okay. So, the people who made 0 to 30 and 31 to 40 would be the people who failed the test.
Right, because our
And
pass mark is how much?
10 plus 25.
The pass mark is 40 marks, right?
All right.
Right. So, therefore, if you make less than that, you would have failed the test, right?
Yes.
All right, great. So you see that this group here, these two bars represent the people that failed the test. All right. So how many people does that represent?
25.
Very good. So if you read along here, these lines, we're going to get a 10 and a 15 reading, right?
Yes.
So you add those together and we'll get 25. All right, so far so good. And what about the people who passed the test now?
The people who passed the test would be 41 to 50, 51 to 60, and 61 to 70.
Right.
And those, when you add them up, you'll get 95.
Okay, so we have a 30 here.
Yes.
And a 40.
And a 25.
And a 25. Very good. So that all together gives us 95, you said, right?
Yes.
Yes, that's correct. So all together here, we have a total of 95. So we want to get now the difference in the number of students who passed the test and those who failed. So what is that answer?
So you need to do 95 minus 25, which will give you 70 students.
All right, excellent. So we have 70 students. Very good, Jacob. Thank you so much for your assistance. All right, so this one, again, we'll just recap very quickly. We won't need to do over the entire question here, right? We have here a bar graph, right? Notice that the bars are equally spaced and the bars are of the same width, all right? And we have to calculate the difference in the number of students who passed the test and those who failed. And we were given a pass mark of 40 marks, right? So that means, and you know, we are told here that these here are ranges of marks, all right? So the 0 to 30 means that 10 students altogether got between 0 and 30 marks, right? So anywhere between 0 and 30. 15 students got anywhere between 31 to 40, right? That's what we mean by those by ranges. We have 41 to 50 having 30 students falling within that category, and 40 students between the 51 to 60 category, as well as 25 in our 61 to 70 category. So altogether, those that failed had a total, or they numbered 25 in total, and those that passed our exam or the exam numbered 95 in total, and the question just simply asked to calculate the difference. And of course, everyone should know when we're speaking of the difference here, it means that we have to subtract, right? So we subtract the 25 from 95, and we have a number or a value of 70 students being the difference. All right, so with that, we're going to take a break for a couple of minutes, and we'll come back with more of your statistical questions here, right here on C Results on IBN TV. So don't go anywhere. We'll be back in a couple of minutes.
Attention all bakers, doubles vendors and roti makers. Try our high quality unbleached bromate free all purpose and baker's flour. Low price and conveniently packaged in 2 pounds, 2 kg, 10 kg and 25 kg bags. For wholesale and retail prices, contact Shiklisha Limited 665-3336 or visit us at Warrenville, Canupia. Shiklisha Limited, quality you can trust.
Fruta, taste the real Fruta. Enjoy the real Fruta. Refreshing juice of every day. Whoa, Fruta.
For the everyday lowest prices on all grocery items, trust Low Cost Supermarket for the widest variety of quality products at low prices. Freshly picked fruits and vegetables, healthy products for your well-being, high quality meat cuts, and a warm and friendly service. Low Cost Supermarket, Sun and Main Road, Canupia.
IBN can be viewed on the go now with the Airlink TV app for Google devices. Simply go to the Google Play Store, search for the Airlink TV app, download the app, click on the link and fill out the form. The account activation will be emailed or texted to the user. It's safe as no credit card is needed. The first 30 days are free and you can subscribe and receive a box for your TV to stream the same content.
Good afternoon, assalamu alaikum, and welcome back to C Results on IBN TV. Right, I am Say Ijaz, and we are doing mathematics currently. We are looking at statistics, and so far we've had a look at tally charts, frequency charts, and pictographs, and we are here now studying some bar graph type questions. And of course, these questions are the section 2 type questions, so they are a bit more difficult than the section 1 questions which we covered previously in our past videos on statistics, which are again available on our YouTube channel as well as on our See Results Facebook page under the videos tab. So once more, we're going to be asking for you to call us and to give us your assistance with these questions. And do take a read right before you call in. There is a bit of strategizing that needs to be done to answer these questions in most cases. Right, so here our question says that to determine if toy X should continue to be sold, Mr. Hussein needs to sell an average of 55 toys or more during a 6-day week, right? And what advice would you give to Mr. Hussein based on the information in this bar graph? So I have a caller on the line. Good afternoon, caller. Welcome to See Results on IBN TV.
Good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon. And who am I speaking with?
Jacob.
Hey, welcome, Jacob. So, Jacob, give me your thoughts here on this question.
Okay. So since he needs to sell an average of 55 toys,
yes,
you'll have to find the sum of that 6-day period,
right,
and then divide it by 6 to find the average.
Okay, good. So far, so good. So, is it possible for us to zoom in a little bit on the bar graph here?
Yes. Yes, please.
All right.
I'm just working it out right now.
Yeah. Guys, can we zoom in a little bit onto the bar graph on the screen?
8 to 7 and 8 to 8. Okay, so the sum is 360, and when you divide it by 6, you'll get 60, which is the average.
Okay, so the average here is
60
60 toys being sold for the week, right?
Yeah.
And Mr. Hussein needs to sell an average of how many toys during this week?
55.
Right, so therefore, what advice would you give him? Would you tell him to continue selling the toys or not to continue selling the toys?
To continue, since he got over an average of 55.
Excellent. So thank you, Jacob, for your assistance with that question. Very well done. All right, so again, well, this question actually brings in 2 topics that we've covered already, right? We've covered the arithmetic mean, and now we're looking at an advanced question in the topic of bar graphs here. So it's 2 different topics together, and incidentally, both of those topics fall under the statistics category of questions. So we have to read the height of the bar graphs here. The values are given on the left-hand side, right? So we know that on Monday, 50 of the toys were sold. On Tuesday, so notice that this particular bar falls between 70 and 80 in the middle. So that would be 75, right? We have 60 being sold on Wednesday. We have 30 being sold on Thursday. Again, we're here between 60 and 70 for Friday. So that gives us 65. And on Saturday, we have 80 being sold. So when we sum all of this up together, as Jacob said, we're going to end up with a total of 360. And you all can verify that at home. I can tell you that I've worked it out ahead of time, so that is the correct sum. And we have to divide that by 6 because it's a 6-day week, and we're going to get an average of 60 toys being sold per day. And the criteria for knowing if to continue the sale of this toy is that it should have an average of 55 or more. 60 is well over 55, right? So therefore, the advice that you'd have to give to Mr. Hussein is to continue the sale, all right? Continue the sale of toy X. All right. So that is the advice that you'd have to give in that particular instance. Okay, so we have a different type of graph here now up on our screen, which is very much related to the bar graph, right? It's called a block graph, and each of the blocks here on our grid represents a certain value, and that is the theory behind it, right? So it's very closely linked. And here we have an incomplete block, right? Block graph, sorry, showing Rena's savings over a 6-month period, right? So we have here the months, January to June. These blocks savings are in dollars, and each of these squares here represents $10, right? So her average monthly savings is $45. So again, it's combining our knowledge of averages, arithmetic mean, and now here the block graph, right? So we need to complete the block graph to show Rena's savings for the month of May. So if you know how to answer this question, please feel free to give us a call. I have a call on the line. Good afternoon and welcome to See Results on IBN TV.
Hi, good evening.
Hey, welcome, Nicholas.
Hi.
All right, Nicholas. So what are your thoughts on this question here on the screen?
Okay, so they say that her average is $45 of 6 months, right? So what I will do, I will say 45 times 6, and that will give 45 times 6, and that's her total average. So therefore, total average is $270 for these 6 months. Right? So in order to get May, I will say January will be 10 by 3, which is 30.
Right.
That's give me $30. So January, February will be $40.
Right.
March will be $50.
Very good.
So now April will be 40, just like February.
Yes.
And they say May is anonymous. So we go on to June, and June will be 50. So what I will do now, I will add up these all of for January, February, March, April, and June, and I'll get my answer. Can you give me a minute, please?
Of course. Go ahead. So Nicholas there told us that May is anonymous, right? I love that. Anonymous, meaning unknown, we don't know.
So her total, right, will be $170, right? So what I'll do, $270 from
Hold up. You sure it's $170? Check that back.
Yeah. $210, sorry.
Right, 210.
Right. So 210. So May will be 270 from 210, right? And that will give you a difference of $60. So May will be $60, and you just share the 6 blocks.
Excellent job, Nicholas. Thank you so much for that answer.
Yes, sir. You're welcome.
All right. So that's Nicholas there flexing his vocab muscles. Of course, when we say anonymous, really we mean, we don't know the name of something, right? Not necessarily the value, but it does carry that connotation of being unknown, all right? So I do commend his, trying to use out those words there. That's one way to get those vocabulary words stuck in your mind, all right? Is to actually apply them. And don't feel ashamed or embarrassed in any way to use big words. Once you learn those words, you say them, you make a mistake here and there, that's fine. Your language is going to improve, not only for the exam, but you'll become a well-spoken person, and that is something very much valued in the working world as well, all right? So hats off to all of you who are reading and learning your vocab and trying to implement it, right? So Nicholas is quite correct. We have here this block graph where each block represents $10, right? And we are just recapping here for those of you who might still feel a little bit lost, all right? And we are told that Rena's average monthly salary is $45. Now, if you recall, when we did averages, arithmetic mean, right, we get the average by dividing the sum by the count, all right? Our count here is 6 because we have 6 months. So sum, right, S-O-M-E, sum is divided by 6 and giving us a value of $45. So in order to get that sum, we have to do the opposite operation here. So the opposite of divide is to multiply, right? So the sum is 45 multiplied by 6, and that gives us 270, right? So if we know that in order to have an average of $45 per month, Rena had to spend $270 over this time period, right? So we need to know now what is the missing number, the missing amount of spending for this month, May, right, in order to come up with this 270 sum. So what we do is we add up all the values for the other months which we do know, right? In this case, we knew January, February, March, April, and June, and in using our key, which told us that one block is representing $10, we were able to get those values for each of those months, sum it to 210. We took it away from the total sum in our average calculation, right, which should be 270, and we got a difference of 60. And knowing that each block represents $10, we simply have to divide 60 by 10, which gives us a number of 6, and we therefore will have to shade 6 of those blocks in our block graph, right? So incidentally, May is the month where Rena spent the most amount of money, right? So that, you know, it's a lot of knowledge that you have to have in order to solve this problem. You need to understand how to work, how to interpret mean, how to do mean arithmetic, mean calculations, average calculations, right? And also your multiplication, division, your addition, everything really is being tested here, right? For this particular question. So well done, Nicholas. All right, and we have now another block graph question. So this one goes that fruit sales at a store during a given week are shown in the block graph, and we are told that 60 more apples were sold than oranges. So we want to know what is the value of a shaded block. All right, so if we take a closer look here at this block graph, we have number of fruits. What do we have? We have mangoes, oranges, apples, pears, and cherries being represented here in the block graph, right? And we know that 60 more apples were sold than oranges, and we want to know now what is the value of a shaded block. So if you know the answer to this question, please give us a call. And I do have a caller on the line. Good afternoon, caller. Welcome to See Results on IBN TV.
Good afternoon.
Hi, and who am I speaking with?
Jacob.
Hey, welcome back, Jacob. So, Jacob, what would you do to answer this question?
Okay. So there are 60 more apples than oranges, right?
Yes.
So as I can see on the graph, on the bar graph, there are 4 more shaded blocks on the apple section than the orange section.
Right.
Therefore, 60 is equal to 4 shaded blocks.
Right.
So therefore, one block would be equal to 60 divided by 4, which is 15.
15, right? So the answer for this question is the value of one block is 15 fruits, right?
Yes.
Right, 15 fruits. Thank you so much, Jacob, for that answer. All right, so this one a bit easier than the previous block graph question. All right, we have here 5 different types of fruits being sold, and we are told that 60 more apples were sold than oranges. So how many blocks are shaded for apples? We have 5 blocks being shaded for apples, right? And we have 1 block shaded for oranges. So the difference there between the two is obviously 4 blocks, right? 5 subtract 1 is 4 blocks. And that difference of 4 blocks equates to 60 more apples being sold. So if we know for 4, we can find for 1 by dividing by 4. We divide that 60 by 4, which gives us 15, right? So each of those blocks is equivalent to 15 fruits being sold. All right? So I'm going to wrap it up there for today, right? Because we're going to be moving on again next week. Actually, we have some statistics questions that are not strictly under the category of any of the 3 that we did today, but they are questions that we can reason out, right? But we are going to look at those on our next episode of C Results. But before I leave you, I just want to remind you all of our Edmodo page, right? It is Thursday, so you only have 1 day left to do our assignments, which were posted on Saturday. So if you've forgotten to do them, remember it's due tomorrow at 11:59 p.m. If this is the first time that you're joining us, you haven't yet, maybe you've watched all the episodes this week and you're interested now in doing our quizzes, our assignments, which are all, totally free. You can visit edmodo.com or download the Edmodo app, and you are using this code here up on your screen, 6KJQ3Y, and you can register for our class. And of course, you can feel free to tackle the questions that were posted on Saturday, right? All of our videos from last week have already been uploaded to the Facebook. Well, they are there on the Facebook page under the videos tab, and they've already been uploaded to our YouTube channel, C Results. So feel free to subscribe to our YouTube channel, have a look at those videos, and attempt the quizzes that are due tomorrow, and submit your creative writing pieces, all right? And we will be marking those over the weekend, and you can look out for your scores on our next program, all right? And you can also look forward to new quizzes being posted on Saturday, okay? So at 6 p.m. this evening, you will be joined by Miss Nyla, who will be taking you through creative writing. And I do hope to see you again next week. Do have a very safe and enjoyable weekend. All right, good evening. Assalamu alaikum.
IBN can be viewed on the go now with the Airlink TV app for Google devices. Simply go to the Google Play Store, search for the Airlink TV app, download the app, click on the link and fill out the form. The account activation will be emailed or texted to the user. It's safe as no credit card is needed. The first 30 days are free, and you can subscribe and receive a box for your TV to stream the same content.
Chiclesia Limited, the Caribbean's largest manufacturers of plain and printed paper bags, leaders in plastic bags, vermicelli, split piece powder, and greaseproof paper, ideal for doubles, french fries, and sandwiches. Supplying stores nationwide. For quality products, trust Chiclesia Limited, 665-3336.
High blood pressure is as dangerous as an overpumped balloon. Measuring your blood pressure every day can save you from risk of high blood pressure. MicroLife fully automatic upper arm blood pressure monitor with stroke risk detection. MicroLife AFib screens for atrial fibrillation while taking your blood pressure. High blood pressure and atrial fibrillation are both considered controllable risk factors for stroke. If AFib is present during blood pressure measurement, the AFib icon is displayed flashing at the end of the triple measurement. Once 3 measurements are complete, the measurement data are shown on the display. MicroLife, a partner for people, for life.
Attention all bakers, doubles vendors and roti makers. Try our high-quality unbleached bromate-free all-purpose and baker's flour. Low price and conveniently packaged in 2 pounds, 2 kg, 10 kg and 25 kg bags. For wholesale and retail prices, contact Shiklisha Limited, 665-3336 or visit us at Warrenville, Canupia. Shiklisha Limited, quality you can trust.
Let me hear you sing. Got to have my beaver, water but so much better. Got to have my beaver, water but so much better.
Viva sparkling flavored water. Water but better.
Assalamu alaikum, good evening guys and welcome to C Results. You are joining Miss Nyla and we are about to start our creative writing session or our final creative writing session for this week. Right, so as you know, for creative writing we are currently on expository or report style writing, and so far we just looked at the rubric. We just started with it actually analyzing it, and we only covered the content aspect of the rubric thus far. In addition to that, we did transitions necessary, so transitional words necessary, or the use of transitional words in report writing. And as we know and we have learned, transitional words for report style writing and for narrative style writing is different, right? So you have to be very careful with that. That is one of the key things that your examiner is looking out for when they are marking your paper. And as we go along, examining the rubric, you are going to understand that a little better. So we are going to jump right into it. I just realized I did not say welcome to everyone, so I must say welcome to all of our viewers who are joining us right here on IBN Channel 8. Or, of course, you are watching us on our live stream on Facebook via the C Results page or the IBN TV 8 page. Welcome, parents and students. I hope that you all had a good day at school. For some of you, I know it's the end of the week already, and some of you, we just have one day to go, right, before we have this long weekend. So let's get into it. So this is what your report style writing rubric looks like. It's exactly as the narrative style rubric in terms of its outlook, right? So it has the same 6 achievement levels where the maximum amount of mark you can earn in each criterion is 5, and then you have your 4 criteria here, right? So this rubric, so report and narrative, is similar in this aspect. Right, they are testing content, language use, organization, grammar, mechanics. Now, what is different or what varies in these rubrics, what they consist of, right? For example, last day, we touched on content. Now, in content, we said that these are the things, key things necessary, right, that the student must have in their writing. So we said that, and this is just a recap for those of you in case you missed that episode last day. And the day before that, when we just started expository style writing, your content, there are some things that you must have, right? So we are looking at relevant main ideas and supporting details. We are looking at the persons involved. In talking about the persons involved, there are things that you must mention. There are things that we are not looking for as well, right? So be mindful of that. Location of the incident, sports day, field trip, fire whatever you are writing your report on. That is what we are looking at, date and of course time, right? So we already discussed content in detail, and we even looked at a couple sample introductory paragraphs where we analyze those, looking at the key things here, so relevant details, location, time, etc., right, in those paragraphs. Now, we are not finished with content just yet, but we will not be going on further into content today. Next week, I have a plan to show you the format for report style writing, and I don't know how many of you, in fact, know that there are different formats for different topics, right? So some of the top popular topics in report style writing might be an incident that took place between two students, probably in a playfield, somewhere in a school, during their lunchtime, probably a sports day, and so on, right? So there are specific formats that the ministry, you know, has set out for teachers to use as guidelines, and of course for students to abide by and to follow. So I'm going to share those with you, so please look out for those, right, as I share more information on that. Now we are moving on into language use. Language use is the second criterion in your rubric, right? Now, what is language use all about, and how do you earn a maximum of 5 marks in this section, right? What must you do, and what you should not do in order to get 5 marks. Now, when we're talking about language, there are some things that you must know, right? When I say exclusive use of factual language, I mean only factual language, right? And I'm going to explain to you shortly what is factual language, right? Also, exclusive use of formal language, fluent, so it must be fluent. Your sentences should be fluent. Your story should flow smoothly, and you should have a variety of sentence types. Now, sentence types is something that we already touched on, but we will be reminded of it. This is very important, so it is, you know, necessary that we go over, and that's, you know, some of you probably just joined us for the first time or a couple episodes back, right? So this will also be informative for you. Now, when we talk about factual language will indicate that something is true or has happened. So in report writing, you can only use factual language, right? So it's a formal tone of writing, a formal style of writing. So nothing is, you should not give any opinions about any scenario taking place. So about an incident or a field trip, or probably something happened to a child, right? And you think, you might say, I think, right? You are not allowed to do that. And I'm going to get some paragraphs to show you some examples and some non-examples of factual style writing. So be very careful when you are writing. Remember to only use factual language. Next, we are still in language use. The second key thing that we are focusing on is formal tone, right? So the second point here, formal language or formal tone. Now, how do you maintain formal language in your writing? In expository writing, you can only use the formal style, right? So let's see what the formal and the informal style is all about. So look at this example here. They have been fighting all day. And under the heading for this is actually informal. Now, why is it informal? If you look across to the formal section here, you will say they have been fighting all day. Now, what do you notice, right, is different about these two sentences here, right? So I'm not going to point it out to you just yet, but you should be looking at it very carefully. And it's actually really easy to identify, right? So you just have to ensure that you maintain that formal tone while writing. Look at the second one. We feel that the time given is unrealistic, right? So pay attention to the sentence, keywords. Second one, it is felt that the time given is unrealistic. What about the third example here? I planned many different outcomes for the school's sports day. And your formal tone, many different outcomes were planned for the school's sports day. Now, what is different in these three examples? Let's see. Look at the first example here. Informal, they've been fighting all day. Instead, we have they have been, right? So they've here is actually a contraction, right? It's a shortened form for they have. In formal style writing, we do not use contractions, right? So try to avoid any contractions. So isn't, aren't, they've, we've, all of those don't, all of those are contractions, right? So avoid them. Instead, maintain a formal style of writing, right? So spell out your words, do not use a shortened form. They have been instead of they have been. I hope you understand that example. What about example number 2 here? We feel that the time given is unrealistic, right? Look at the formal example. It is felt that the time given is unrealistic. What is different about these two sentences? If you notice here, we and it, your pronouns here is what matters. Remember, in report style writing, right, we are avoiding the use of first person. So no we and no I. So avoid the pronouns I and we, right? So I'm sure that your teachers always remind you, don't say we, don't use I in your writing. If you follow the example here, right, instead of using the first person pronoun we use a third person, it, right? So you are allowed to use in third person, right? It is preferred that you speak in third person as opposed to first person. Again, I'm going to repeat that. Pronouns I and we should refrain, right, or avoid using those in our report style writing. To maintain a formal tone or formal style of writing, it is preferred that you use the third person pronouns, right? So look at the third one. I planned many different outcomes for the school sports day. Many different outcomes were planned for the school sports day, right? What is different about this? You have your subject pronoun I, right? So again, we are avoiding the use of the pronouns I or we to help maintain that formal tone. In addition to that, we are avoiding contractions in our writing, right? So those are 2 tips there to help you to keep on the formal style of writing, right? Be very mindful of that. That is extremely important, right? And your third point here under language use, which is also part of the 5 marks, fluent varied sentence types. Now, if you notice, a lot of things here they are looking at for only 5 marks, right? So you have to maintain factual language, use formal language, and use a variety of sentences, all for just 5 marks. Now, it's very easy to get that 5 marks if you follow these simple rules or guidelines, right? So you have to be careful. You have to keep in mind at the back of your head when you are writing your report, what does a rubric say about language use? What does a rubric say about content, right? So these key things here, guidelines, is what you should be keeping in mind when you are writing, right? You should be focusing on these key points. So we have sentence types, right? So we know that there are different types of sentences. So we are not speaking about declarative sentence or exclamatory sentence, none of those, right? We're talking about the structure of the sentence rather. Now, if you look at the structure of the sentence, they can be broken down. Sentences can be classified according to their structure. 3 structures that we are focusing on, that SE is focusing on: simple sentences, compound sentences, and complex sentences. Now, how many of you can tell me what is a compound sentence or a complex sentence? And notice I'm not asking what is a simple sentence, right? Because that one we know, right? That one is straightforward to us. But you should be mindful of all 3. And even if you don't know number 1, right, this is an opportunity for you to learn, right, and get on board and start implementing a variety of sentences in your writing. Now, why is it important to have different styles of or different structures of sentences in your writing? It's simple, right? It makes your writing, of course, more interesting to read, as opposed to having one type of sentence throughout your writing, right? So it gives your report or your narrative piece, right, some level of complexity, right? It creates interest, and it makes the reader, aware that this person knows how to write, right? They are giving you a variety, right? So let's go on. Let's see what these types of sentences are all about. So the first one that we are looking at is simple sentences, right? So a simple sentence contains a subject and a predicate, right? So that's part of a sentence. Those are things that we look for when we are writing a sentence, subject and the predicate, right? Simple sentences express a complete thought, right? So simple sentences is just as the name indicates. It's simple, it's straightforward, very basic, right? Look at the examples here, right? The boys went to the park, we like pizza, right? So it's very easy to write a sentence. So a simple sentence is what we start writing, or what we start learning from infants, right? Straight up until probably second year. And then we start moving on probably a little more into the compound and complex sentences, right? And just have a tip for you here. A simple sentence is also called an independent clause, right? So an independent clause is a simple sentence because it can stand on its own, right? That piece of information can stand on its own. It's not dependent on any other piece of information in your writing, right? So again, a simple sentence, like I said, it's simple, straightforward, very basic. Your next type of sentence here, we have compound sentences. What is a compound sentence, right? So compound sentences contain two or more independent clauses. And if you remember, as I just said, an independent clause is a simple sentence, in other words, or it's one that can stand on its own, right? Clauses are joined by a coordinating conjunction. Now, this is the important part of a compound sentence. And this is what you actually must know, right, by heart, right? It must be memorized. So you have to know your conjunctions, and you must know what is a coordinating conjunction, right? And I'm going to show you how it's easy to remember. And for you, those of you, if you missed when we did conjunctions in ELA, right, and probably that's a problem area to you, you can probably go back on our see results page, locate those videos, and watch that episode on conjunctions, right? And if it's a little difficult there to find, feel free to go on our YouTube channel, see results, and just search coordinating conjunction, and you will get that topic, right? It's really easy to find. So please make use of the resources that are at hand. All of them are there for you, right, to make it easy or make learning easy for you. So let's go back to compound sentences, right? We are saying clauses are joined by coordinating conjunction, by a coordinating conjunction. Now, what is a coordinating conjunction? Let's look at these examples here and try to figure out what is a coordinating conjunction. The girls went to the beach, but they did not go to the zoo, right? So it's written in red for you, so it's easy to spot. But let's look at the sentence structure itself. The girls went to the beach, right? Can that sentence stand on its own? What about the second part? But they did not go to the zoo. So can that sentence also stand on its own? And the answer is yes, right? And now I just want to point out a piece of grammar for you here. Not grammar, sorry, punctuation. You would notice a punctuation mark before the coordinating conjunction but. Now, why do we have a conjunction there? Not a conjunction, sorry, a punctuation mark, a comma. It's because both of these sentences here can stand on its own. They are independent, right? So, hence the reason we use a comma right there, right? Look at number 2. We like chocolate and we like ice cream, right? So, both of these sentences here, not sentences, clauses actually can be broken down, right? We like chocolate. Can that stand on its own? Is it independent? Now, look at this. We like ice cream, right? Also independent. But what we are learning here about compound sentences is that clauses, right, just as this here, are joined by a coordinating conjunction, right? What is our coordinating conjunction in the sentence? And the previous one, but. So we do need to take a break. It's Maghrib time, but don't go anywhere, guys. Join me or rejoin me in a couple minutes as we complete today's episode of Report Style Writing. Assalamu alaikum, good evening guys, and welcome back to C Results. If you're just joining us, welcome. I'm Ms. Nyla, and we are on to our creative writing session for today. We are right now looking at expository style writing, and just before the break, we started looking at the report, or its rubric rather, and we already discussed the first criterion, which was content, and now we are on to language use. And in language use, there are several things that we must look at. One being, let me actually just go back to that real quick. Right, so these are what the things that we are focusing on: factual language, formal tone, or formal language rather, and a variety of sentence types. Now we already discussed factual and formal language. Now we are on to varied sentence types. And we are on compound sentences. Right, so let's recap on what is a compound sentence. Right, we said that they contain two or more independent clauses as well as clauses that join by a coordinating conjunction, which brings us to the point of what is a coordinating conjunction and how can you remember them, right? So help you identify a compound sentence. So they are telling you that a compound sentence contains two or more independent clauses. Independent clauses mean that those clauses can stand on its own. It's not depending on another piece of information, as well as they are joined by a coordinating conjunction. In order for you to spot or identify a compound sentence, you must know what it contains as well as the coordinating conjunctions. Now, here's an easy way for you to be reminded of what the coordinating conjunctions are. It simply spells out fanboys, right? So it's a short way or an acronym that helps us to remember. Now, what does fanboys have to do with coordinating conjunctions? It's spelled out really nicely here for you. So F for A and, N, nor, but, or, yet, so. Right? So we took the first letter of each one of these words and we created the acronym fanboys, which helps us to remember the coordinating conjunctions necessary for compound sentences. Not only compound sentences, but it helps us to identify the compound sentences in your writing. So again, it spells out fanboys, and once you know that acronym fanboys, it's going to be really easy because we use conjunctions in our writing all the time, right? So once you see that acronym there, or you remember more importantly that acronym, you are going to know which conjunction you can use in order to have a compound sentence. Right? And the final type or structure of sentences that we are looking at today is complex sentences. Right? And complex sentences contain an independent clause and a dependent clause. Again, complex sentences contain an independent clause and a dependent clause. A compound sentence contains two or more independent clauses. Here you are seeing the difference with a complex sentence. Right? So instead of having two independent, now we have an independent and a dependent. Independent meaning that that clause can stand on its own, right? But an dependent clause means that it's depending on an independent clause, right? On a piece of information given. We'll look at an example shortly, right? Also, dependent clauses begin with a subordinating conjunction, right? So this is the difference here again. With complex sentences, dependent clauses, because complex sentence is made up of an independent and a dependent clause. So we are saying here the dependent clauses begin with a subordinating conjunction. Now there are lots of subordinating conjunctions, and we'll probably look at a few shortly, right? So you should also know or revise your list on subordinating conjunctions, right? So let's look at the example here. Whenever Sebastian was away, I rode his bicycle. Right? So here we said dependent clauses begin with a subordinating conjunction. Let's look at this sentence. Whenever Sebastian was away, right? This clause here begins with a subordinating conjunction, and it is it independent or is it dependent? Right? So if I say whenever Sebastian was away, can I leave that as it is? Can that be read as a separate sentence or an independent sentence? No, it cannot. So therefore, it is a dependent clause, right? Depending on the next piece of information, which is, I rode his bicycle. And if you read that together using your subordinating conjunction, because this part is a dependent clause, so therefore I'm using a subordinating conjunction. Whenever Sebastian was away, I rode his bicycle. And after a dependent clause, I need a comma. Yeah, so be mindful of that. We also covered use of commas in our ELA lesson on punctuation, so feel free to go back and rewatch those videos as well. Right, look at number 2. I rode Sebastian's bicycle whenever he was away. Right, so I rode Sebastian's bicycle whenever he was away. The subordinating conjunction now is now joining those sentences. Not sentences, but clauses rather. Right, so you just have to be mindful of what is a compound sentence, what it entails, what a complex sentence entails. Now, the reason that you need to know this is not that you're going to be tested specifically. They're going to ask you, write a compound sentence for me, or write a complex or a simple sentence. That is not how they test it. How they test it is that you actually, in your creative writing, right? As you know, ELA and creative writing is closely linked. So they're going to look in your creative writing or in your report style writing, as we saw in the rubric, and they are going to look at your sentence structures to determine whether you have used a variety of sentences in your report style writing, right? So that's how it's coming into play, so be very mindful of your variety or the variety of sentences that you choose, yeah? Oh, good. We do have a list here of subordinating conjunctions, right? These are just some, right? So a very small part of the list, so that's to familiarize probably some of the parents and for some of the students to become aware of them. Right, so after, although, because, since, when, which, who, that, right? So there are lots more, so feel free, you know, do a little bit of extra research, use your textbooks as a resource, and, you know, read a little bit more about coordinating and subordinating conjunctions. So that brings us to the end of language use, or the second criterion in your rubric. So we covered 2 criteria so far. Content and language use. So we know what we have to do when we are looking at content. We know what we must write when we are focusing on that 5 marks for language use. Now, what are we focusing on in order to earn that 5 marks in organization of our report? Right, so let's take a closer look. Organization, clearly, so they're looking for clearly defined introduction, body, and conclusion. Right, they said clearly defined because they must be able to differentiate between the introduction, your body, and your conclusion, which is what a report entails, right? So just an introduction, body, and conclusion. And we did mention about the length of a report. It can be 3-4 paragraphs. Try not to make it longer than that. Remember, as I told you, the length of your report isn't the same as your narrative style writing. So you don't need to worry about, you know, I don't know what to write again to make it longer, right? A lot of students look at the length of their writing, their piece, and they think it's not sufficient, right? I told you, don't be too worried about the length of that as long as you have all the relevant information in order to earn 5 marks in each criterion, right? So you must have clearly defined introduction, body, and conclusion, of course. All ideas, paragraphs, details are logically sequenced, meaning that your ideas must flow, must be in order, right? Sequencing here is really important, right? Skillful use of transitional words and phrases to link ideas. Now, this here is where transitional words is going to be tested. We know that in order to have a smooth flow of ideas, whether it's reports or narrative, we need to use transitional words. What is important here is which transitional words and phrases you use when you are writing your report, right? So that's why we did an entire lesson on the different types of transitional words that you can use in a report for the different things, right? So like time and all of those things. So compare, contrast, to summarize, probably to emphasize. So go back and take a look at that video as well if you need to. That is key information. So if you need to jot that down, feel free to, right, guys? And finally, we have grammar and mechanics. Grammar and mechanics is the same points or same guidelines that they are looking out for as narrative style, right? So grammar mechanics, strictly capitalization, so capital letters for proper nouns and so on, start of a sentence. We know that already. use of parts of speech. So the different, or the 8 parts of speech, you don't have to use all 8. You have to use what is relevant to your writing. Of course, it must be, your parts of speech must be correctly used, right? So subject, verb, agreement, and so on. Be mindful of that. Punctuation and spelling, right? One thing I failed to mention, organization. The second point here, paragraphs, right? So it is important that you indent. We know at the start of a paragraph, how to define a paragraph is by indenting. So when you are indenting your paragraphs, ensure that all your paragraphs properly have the same amount of space before them, right? And I'm sure you know how to indent. How we teach it, probably in the lower levels, use 2 finger spaces or 3, right? So just be mindful of that. Be very careful. You want your reader to be able to see your paragraphs clearly, right? So when they say clearly defined and so on, clearly defined paragraphs, right? They must be able to recognize it if they're holding the paper at a distance. Simple as that. Good. So that's about it for the rubric, report style rubric. And we have covered everything that we need to know and things that we should have in our report, right? That is essentially the main idea of looking or analyzing the rubric. It helps us, or it acts as a guide for us when we are writing our report, to stay away from irrelevant details and things that we should not have in our report. Now, it is not clearly stated in the rubric what we should not have. It tells us what we should do, but it doesn't tell us what we should not do. So these tips here, and I did share them already twice with you, but I'm going to share it again and every time that we do a report, because these are the things that we are focusing on that helps us to stay on track with report style writing. As I said, report is a little more strict, right, or limited in terms that, for example, right, look at the second line here. Use past tense form of verbs, right? So the rubric didn't tell us that, right, but this is something that you must know. In a report, because it's something that has already happened, right, it must be written in your past tense only, right? So use past tense form of verbs. Your first point, be aware of your audience. You must know who you are writing to, right? So you have to be aware of your audience, the person who you are writing to, names, etc., all of that. Third point, use varied sentence types. We'll just look at the variety of structures that we can use in our writing, so now we have a better idea of what they mean when they say use varied sentence types. Avoid use of the pronouns I and we. And we looked at that when we were looking at language use, right? So we're differentiating between formal and informal. So here we are seeing that they're telling us to avoid the use of the pronouns I and we. So be very careful or mindful about that. No descriptive language. No descriptive language, right? So use of adjectives and so on, right? Please limit that. When I say limit it to 0, right? So we don't want any adjectives or description of emotions, description of setting and characters and so on, right? Please keep that for your narrative style writing. Your report doesn't require any descriptive language or additional information as such, right? So let's just go back to the board here for this set, right? We have here no dialogue, no direct speech, right? Now, what do we mean by no dialogue and no direct speech? So you cannot have a conversation in report style writing, right? So you, just as we have a narrative, and some of you did an excellent job when we gave you the exercise to write a dialogue for us, which is well and really well written, but save it, guys, for report style writing. Narrative style writing. Report style writing, we do not have any direct speech, right? Also, factual language only, just as we just explained to you. Transitional words used must be specific to reports. Notice I said specific to reports because, as I cannot emphasize enough, there are transitional words that we use specifically for report style writing, right? Whereas the narrative style writing is a little more free, and you have options. While you do have options in the report, you have to be very particular not to use the incorrect transitional word, right? And lastly, length. Students should not overwrite. That is the point that I was just bringing across with the length of your narrative report, not your narrative, sorry, your report style writing, where you can have 3 or 4 paragraphs, right, guys? Good. So now what we are going to do, we are actually going to take a look at a report. I'm not sure if we will have enough time to critique the report, but I will like to read the topic for you, and we can look at this example of a report, right? As I said, next week I'm going to try my best to show you all the different formats used for different topics. Now next week, speaking about next week, because we have that long weekend coming up, on Thursday actually you will be rejoining us for mathematics, and we don't know if it's ELA or creative writing as yet. We are yet to decide, but either way, on Thursday next week, you will be rejoining Sir Jazz and I. So that is that Monday and Tuesday, we will not have any lessons, live lessons, I should say rather, because as you know, there are recaps running and the videos are available for you right here on C-Results, on our C-Results page on Facebook and on YouTube, right? So don't be worried. Here's a chance for you to catch up on some extra work if you have those assignments coming in. And of course, you'll have those extra assignments from Edmodo, right? But I'll talk about that a little bit more just now. Let's look at this, this topic here. Write a report on your school's sports day. Include details about the date and time, the main events, the eventual winners, how did they end it. So what is your report based on in this topic? You have to write about a school's sports day, right? So let's just look at this approach to writing. And we did in fact see this first paragraph already. I chose to go back with this same topic because I wanted to show you this particular example, right? Now let's just reread this first paragraph. On Wednesday, 4th June 2017, the South Primary School held a sports day at Skinner's Park. The event took place around 7 o'clock in the morning and ended at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. The participants of the sports day were the students, the parents, and the teachers from the school, all of whom were placed into various house teams. The various teams were represented by different colors. For instance, Scarlet Ibis was red, Egret was orange, Hummingbird was green, and Kiskadee was yellow. Some of the main events were the march past, the arch and under relay race, the 100-meter race, and the sack race. Right? Firstly, the vice principal, Mrs. Joanne Smith, welcomed everyone present, and then the national anthem was played. Next, all the children gathered at their respective tents and were ordered from first year to standard 5. They were then placed in the order of the Scarlet Ibis, Egret, Kiskadee, and Hummingbird to start the march past. When all the houses were lined up on the track, the march past started with 2 senior students waving flags with their colors at the front of each group for the judges. Each house performed a different choreography and waited for the judges' decision to be revealed. As the march past concluded, the judges' decision was submitted and the Hummingbird house was declared the winner. A few minutes later, the vice principal announced that the games were open. All the house members returned to their tents to prepare for the competition. After the preparation for the events were completed, the first event started and each house sent 8 representatives for the arch and under relay race. To play this event, a person at the front places the ball over his head, and the second person would take the ball, places it between his legs, and continued until the 8th person received the ball and runs to the front of the line. The houses were in position and the race started. At first, the Scarlet Ibis house was in the lead, but the Kiskadee house was victorious in the end. Next, all the houses chose the competitors to run for the 100-meter race, which was the second event of the day. Then all the representatives lined up behind the starting line and awaited the blow of the whistle. As the whistle was blown, every one of the representatives ran towards the finish line. Egret was in the lead, with Scarlet Ibis and Kiskadee close behind. When they crossed the finish line, Egret placed first, with Scarlet Ibis second and Kiskadee third. Meanwhile, the houses aided themselves for the final race, which was a sack race. 4 competitors from each house were chosen mainly from the standard 4 and 5 departments. Each of the teammates were placed approximately a meter apart, each wearing a sack. The whistle was blown and the first group hopped to their partners with the Scarlet Ibis house in the lead. The second group was sent off and the second person of the Scarlet Ibis house fell down next to the third partner, but they were still in the lead. The final stretch was completed with the Scarlet Ibis house winning. Right, so that was a bit long, right? I don't know how many of you would agree with me, right? I'm not going to critique this piece today, but I did want to show it, bring it to your attention, as next day we are going to be using the rubric to probably critique this piece. So what I would like you to do, right, use your rubric and look at this piece, right? So you can rewatch the episode, probably take snapshots, whatever you need to, and make your own critique, right, of this piece. And when we are doing it, you can compare what you have done to what we are going to do. Reason being, I want you to be able to critique your own writing, right? So if you are able to detect the positives and the negatives from this piece, right, that will help you in your own writing, right? So it will tell you, you know, what you need to brush up on and probably the things that you are already good at, right, guys? So please look out for that. Now, what I am going to do, last day, as we usually do on a Thursday with Sir Ijaz, he usually reads, just give me 1 second, right. He usually reads a few selections from the Edmodo class at random, right? What we are going to do today, we are going to continue to look at a couple pieces for the last assignment. So that last assignment, this was your scenario given, right? So we know that over the next few weeks, you will be writing a story, 1 paragraph at a time. So this was the first paragraph that we started with, the introduction paragraph. This week's assignment was to write your second paragraph for the scenario given. You were with your father standing in a line to pay for your groceries at a popular supermarket. Suddenly, the fire alarm went off. Everyone looked around nervously. Write a story describing what happened and how the situation ended. Remember, for this particular week, you had to write only the introductory paragraph, right? So if you wrote more than that, or if you wrote less than that, as some persons did, right, we marked accordingly and we gave you relevant feedback, right? Please always go back and read the feedback that we put there for you, right? So let's look at this introductory paragraph, right, based on the scenario given. It was a Saturday before a long weekend, and boy, the daddy and I chose a wrong day to buy our groceries. I swear that news of an approaching hurricane was announced because hundreds of people were flooding into Massey Stores, Gulfview. Some trolleys were so filled to capacity, I imagined the wheels sounding like dying pigs. The aisles were tightly packed with customers and their shopping carts. I felt like I was sitting in the peak hour traffic on a Monday morning. Daddy showed off his driving skills, maneuvering through the lane. Bang! He collided with another cart. The young lady just shook her head and moved on. At last, all the items on our list were ticked off and we made our way to the cashier. The line was moving so slowly that if Dad and I were running a race with a snail, it surely would have won. Around us, everyone was chattering loudly that no one heard the fire alarm. Ring, ring, it went again, and this time everyone stood motionless. I looked at Daddy and our eyes made four. He realizing what was happening before I did. His voice got caught in his throat, but I was able to read his lips as he croaked, fire. People were already making mad dashes to the exit, but a wobbly, high-pitched female voice came over the PA system, telling us to stay calm and proceed to the nearest exit. This was wonderfully written by Zaria James, right? So what's an interesting start to her story? Zaria, we are definitely looking forward to reading the rest of this, right? A comment though, this paragraph is a bit lengthy, right? Not problematic, just a little bit lengthy, right? But good effort and keep up the good work, right? So in terms of punctuation, that is fine as well, right? We just have to be mindful, not only for Zaria, but for those of us, if we are using any dialogue, not specifically to this piece, but as I was remembering, the pieces that we have been marking, if you're using dialogue, there is specific punctuation marks that you need to use, and capitalization and so on, right, guys? So be mindful of that. And I thought it was really helpful to share Zaria's piece, not only for motivation, but to showcase her great work, right? So good work, Zaria. Look at the second one. Early Sunday morning, I arose to the sweet smell of waffles, marking. My favorite, I said to myself as I quickly jumped off of bed and rushed to the kitchen to see what's off breakfast. It was waffles, eggs, ham, and a hot cup of chocolate, right? While we do, appreciate the effort, this introductory paragraph, aside from it being short, it has nothing to do with the topic, unfortunately, right? You were given a specific scenario. I am urging you guys, read the instructions, read the scenario carefully. For SEA, if you do not write on the topic given, you will not be marked, right, as you would like. So be very careful with that, right? So here we are seeing some grammatical errors, punctuation errors, spelling errors, right? So be mindful of your writing. Remember to reread your work once you have finished writing, right? That's a comment that I always make when I notice spelling errors and punctuation errors and so on, because I know they can be rectified. If you take a minute, right, we literally just take a minute to read that, so take a minute and reread your work. Don't be so eager to hit that submit button, right? Next one. One bright and early Friday morning, my father and I went to the supermarket to purchase the items for our late night family line. While we were standing in line to pay for our groceries at Food Basket, the fire alarm went off. Beep, 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 beep. I was frozen for a moment, and then my father pulled my hand and said to me, let's head out of the closest exit. Let's head to the closest exit. While we were running towards the exit, people screaming, some coughing, my eyes running water, smoke smelling, children crying, and grocery carts were scattered like peas. Then the sprinklers came on and gave us a bath. People pushing through the doors without patience. As I exit the grocery, I was greeted with the siren of the fire engine. Some firemen entered the building to make sure no one was in danger. I believe this is supposed to be danger, while officers outside quickly had the fire under control. There were no more thick black smoke and no injuries. I breathed with a sigh of relief and I thanked God, right? So again, here in this piece, right, while it's a good start, right, and it's just a work in progress. So if you are editing this piece, right, you're given feedback and you're editing this piece, here are a couple of things that you should be mindful of, right? And of course, I would have said this to the student, be mindful of your grammatical errors or any grammatical errors. If you're using dialogue, punctuation marks. Here, if we look at this sentence, right, while we were running towards the exit, people screaming, some coughing. So something is missing here. While we were running towards the exit, people screaming, some coughing, right? So a word or two is missing there. So if you had just reread this line, you would have seen that you needed to add something here, right? Because this actually paints a vivid picture of what is happening. It appears to the sense of sight, right? So reading that line, I can actually picture what is happening, right? So that's an excellent description, but it needs a little bit of work, right, in terms of grammar, right? Carts were scattered like peas. Excellent comparison, right? So like I said, overall, a good piece of writing with 1 or 2, editing here and there, and it will be where you need it to be, right? Now, here I'm not sure if the person or the writer here meant to move on, right? But I am assuming that they meant to move on. It ended a bit abruptly, this last sentence, so it gave us the idea that he has ended, or that he ended the essay or paragraph there that looks like an essay, right? So we're probably looking forward to your next, not probably, we are looking forward to your next paragraph, right? So please submit your next paragraph. I'm going to read one more before we go. All right. It was a bright, sunny day as the Sunday morning breeze flew by. My father and I had set off to the grocery store to buy some products. As we drove to the grocery, I inquired much about the grocery store we would be attending. My father finally revealed that we were going to the very popular True Value. I was bubbling with excitement when we arrived at the car park, at the parking lot. Surprisingly, there were lots of cars. I quickly sprung out of the car and clasped my father's hands. I entered the grocery store. From the second I walked in, I knew that my father was going to be spending a lot of money, right? So another great introductory paragraph there, right? So that next paragraph that you are writing, we know that the setting is going to be in the grocery, so we look forward to the picture that you paint for us there and what is going to happen, right? So this was written by Andy Baldew saying, we can tell that the child took his time with punctuation, selection of words, and everything like that, right? So really good work, Andy, and all students who submitted, right? We thank all of you for your submissions, and we do hope that, the feedback that we give to you, right, helps you, right? We know that it's hard work, narrative style writing, or even creative writing in general, but you can do it. You just have to keep practicing, right? The key is practicing. So that's about all the pieces that I'm going to read because we are quickly, running out of time. But I must mention that IBN TV and San Juan Muslim Ladies Organization, right, is holding an essay writing competition this year. Topic, Why I Love to Fast in Ramadan, right? It's open to boys and girls 12 years and under, and is due on the 10th of April this year, of course. It must be handwritten. This is really important, guys. It must be handwritten and addressed to this address given here, right? So feel free to go on our series results page on Facebook, and if you need this poster, it's there for your convenience to get that address, right? We have some really great, interesting cash prizes. First place will be awarded $5,000, while the second place will get $3,000, and third place $2,000. Right, so I'm encouraging all of you guys to participate, right, and improve your writing skills or show off your writing skills and, grab that opportunity to win that $5,000 prize, right? It's really an interesting, intriguing prize. And, of course, our Edmodo page, right, as we usually do if you're a first-timer with us, parent or student, and you would like to join or subscribe to our class, feel free to join us. So join us at www.edmodo.com. Enter this class code given here, right? Both students and parents can join. Students, only you will be given the opportunity to do the quizzes. Parents, you will be allowed to monitor your child's progress, right? And we urge you parents to get on board and monitor their progress as they work along. And go on that Edmodo class, join us, be a part of that forum, that community of students, right, who engage every day, with each other, helping them or helping themselves, one way or another, right? So it's really good, interactive, and I encourage all students to become a part of it, right? Also, don't forget to go on our YouTube channel, subscribe to our series results page, and, of course, we are on Facebook, series results as well. Like and share the page with your friends, family, and encourage rather everyone to become a part of this great initiative. Okay, guys, so we are out of time for today, right? Like I said, we will be rejoining you next Thursday. We are off Monday and Tuesday, so we do look forward to seeing you here Thursday afternoon, right? So Ijaz and myself, we do wish you, a really wonderful and enjoyable weekend. Please be very careful, be safe wherever you are, have lots of fun as well, but make sure you take the time to do that extra revision and do our quizzes on our Edmodo class, right? So have a wonderful weekend, guys, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Assalamu alaikum. Good evening.